we have people who renew the religion, and that is to revive it from century to century, as is clear in hadith. Today, it may be that we have a particular concern with this that could be somewhat ahistorical. And let me try to make sense of that statement. Many Muslims believe today that our history is pretty much of a failure, that we begin really well, and the Prophet ﷺ and his companions are remarkable beyond words, and the successors, but then, especially from the time of the Umayyads, it's just sort of like downhill. And of course we have extremist ideologies that are extremely problematic, and it is obligatory for scholars to repudiate them. But these extremist ideologies, they often present very explicitly this vision of history, that really there's not much there of worth. We will even see that some of the extremists who are widely read in our time and over the last decades reject the fiqh productions of our great imams and their traditions as fiqh al-awraq, the fiqh of book pages, bookish scholars living maybe in ivory towers and writing things that probably have no relevance. And they would say instead you've got to have fiqh al-harakat, al-waqi' al-haraki. You have to have the fiqh of the movement reality. So these are extremely destructive, alien ideologies that have harmed us beyond words. And today, when we see these horrible things happening, such as the terrorist deeds in California or Tennessee or the Boston Marathon or the Paris murders, the Paris slaughters, or what happened in London, and so many other things that you can talk about, it's like, where did this come from? This is a very hateful ideology that is showing its head. And when it does show its head with the kind of brutality that we see in case, and absolute insanity, then we are shocked by it, and we can identify certain groups and we can say, oh, they looked at this website or they did that. But we have to understand that really that we have ideology, that a lot, these extremist ideologies, most of them among Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they have a genealogy that brings them all together. And some of them may be more extreme than others. But they have much in common, many fundamental fallacies and misconceptions. But in any case, those people in particular, they have essentially written off Islamic history as a failure until the time that they appear. And now they're going to do it the way it never was done. So what we have to understand is that our history is rich and beautiful, and it took on so many different colors, so many different textures. There's not such a thing as an Islamic civilization. There are Islamic civilizations, plural, in India, in China, in Central Asia, in Europe, in the Ottoman Empire, in East and West Africa, in Spain and Portugal, in Sicily, even in Switzerland. where Muslims were there for 150 years, which is an extremely important part of historical development in the West. So a lot of times I think it's very important, if we're going to talk about revival today, to put it in the context that we live in unique times, in that Islam today is really in desperate condition. And we should say again, Muslims are. But don't imagine that what has become a very unfortunate reality for us is something that extends all the way back for centuries and centuries. When I was in our RIS in the retreat just these last days, I had the blessing to be able to pray Fajr, with our brothers and sisters there. And then usually they would ask me questions afterwards. And one man, who, God bless him, he's just so affected by these ideologies. And so he just asked me the question that when Islam spread, these are not his words, but basically that, did they really believe in Tawheed? I mean, why did they come into Islam? Was it because of the wealth? Was it because of, career? I mean, he was trying to find, it's like, these people, and I didn't really know how to answer him. It's like, I've got to be able somehow to try to get through your veil. He's got so many misconceptions that I'm not sure that I know where to begin. And I don't want to insult him in front of the people. But the thing is that in Islamic history, we do have tests all the time. This ummah is the best community brought forth for mankind, with the best prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, given to mankind. And therefore, we will be the most tested of all ummahs. The children of Israel were tested with tests that were extremely severe. The Christians were tested with tests that were extremely severe, and you might even say that they really didn't make it out of that test, that after that they never got their balance back. So you think that we will go through history like a cakewalk? No, that's not going to happen, because on the day of judgment we will see who was the most sincere, who was the most remarkable, who was the greatest. And I believe that our ummah will just dazzle the believers of all time by not just what we did in the beginning, which was spectacular, but also by what you will see at the end. And the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ummati ummatun marhuma. My ummah is an ummah that is shown mercy. And you can also understand from this that there will come times, especially towards the end, but at other times as well, when if this ummah were not shown mercy, then it wouldn't make it. But it will be shown mercy, and it will get itself back together again. So the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ummati kal matar la yudra awwaluhu khayrun am akhiruhu. My ummah is like a rainfall, a good rain. It's not known whether the beginning of that rain, which would be the Sahaba and the successors, is better and more beneficial, or the last of that rain, which may be people like yourselves. And, there's the beautiful hadith in which the Prophet said, I miss my brothers. If only I could see my brothers. Ishtaqtu ila ikhwani. And the Sahaba said, well, we are your brothers. And the Prophet ﷺ said, no, you are my companions. And my brothers are those who will not see me. And any of them would give everything that he's got to be able to see me. And then he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that these will have the rewards of 70 of you. And one of the Sahabis said, 70 of them? And that's not because he doubts the Prophet, but like, maybe I didn't hear this right. Did you actually say 70 of us? Or did I not hear it right and you said 70 of them? It's not as if I don't believe. He's not questioning the Prophet. But the Prophet said, no, 70 of you. And they say, Lima ya Rasulullah. Why, O Messenger of God? And he said, because you found helpers to help you do the good you did. They won't find helpers. And yet, you understand from this hadith, at least I do, that they will do something so remarkably worthy of the Messenger of God that they will be that last blessed part of the rain, and they will get huge rewards. And I believe, when I look at the world today, in the light of the little that I see and understand, that this is going to happen. And maybe it doesn't happen in our lifetimes or those of our children or our grandchildren, maybe over the next 200 years, maybe more. But I do believe this ummah is going to come back to life in its splendor and beauty. And Islamic civilizations were always among the most spectacularly beautiful that the world ever saw. And we talked about beauty, the splendor of truth, in the retreat. I did. And it's very important, that, in Islam, art, and here we don't mean art just like fine arts, but we mean art such as the production of beauty in all that you do. Art was an essential part of the Sharia. The Sharia cannot be complete without a beautiful civilization that houses it. That's always what it does produce. When the Sharia is Sharia, and it's got to produce that. And also Islamic civilizations perform this miracle of joining art and science, the production of beauty with also the production of incredible sciences. So, and this is the Islam that no one seems to know anymore. Because what has happened to us, has reduced us to misery. And there are not many in the Muslim world, I believe, who even imagine what was there before. So when we talk about revival, let's not think that our history was a disaster. And not that that would necessarily imply such a thing. But be careful not to fall into the cognitive frames that have been set for you as traps. Islamic civilization is incredibly successful. And especially for the first 1,200 years, we have troubles, yes. We have destruction, yes. But basically we can always come back. And we do, and we spread so far in the world that there are always havens where things are happening that are amazing.